Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Gerardo Poli.
And this, oh, sorry. Okay.
One of the best bits of advice I've ever received was to find good mentors and to learn from them. Trusted people who have already done what you're trying to do now. I've been fortunate throughout my career to have some fantastic mentors to help guide me, but I realized that they'd be hard to find and also hard to commit the time to one. This is why we've gathered some of the best minds from the veterinary world and squeezed them for their wisdom so that you don't have to learn the hard way.
With the help of our guests, we flip the veterinary profession on its back and explore its soft underbelly to find the tips, tools, and inspiration that you'll need to build the career that you've always wanted.
I'm Gerardo Poli.
I'm Hubert Hemstra, and this is the Vet Vault.
Hey team, what we thought we would do with this podcast is reflect upon some of the most powerful moments we've had in our previous guests. We're up to 15 guests that have come on the show, and we just want to make sure that you haven't missed any powerful parts that have been previously covered. And one of the ones that I wanted to cover today was with Dr. Oliver Liyou, and he's episode 4. And after 26 years as a veterinary professional, he's experienced some pretty highs and some incredibly dark lows. And in 2005, he actually attempted suicide, which obviously he survived, but resulted in him being in a coma for 5 days. Although the topic of the podcast may seem a bit dark, it actually was a powerful podcast, and it was a wonderfully uplifting and brutally honest episode. And one of the powerful things that he shared, or actually several things that he shared, was his tips for surviving the profession. So we thought we would recap these 7 tips and then share our thoughts on what they are.
What I loved about Oliver's episode, Gerardo, is I think when people struggle in the profession or in any profession, they look for role models and they look for mentors. But the risk is that sometimes some of those role models and mentors may not have ever been in a situation where they've really struggled. They might have really always loved it and they've always had shit sorted out and they know where they're going. So I think sometimes it's hard for people to relate to somebody who is really struggling and not finding their groove in veterinary science. So I loved that Oliver had been to the worst part of his career and has had to build strategies and find ways and think really hard about how am I going to make the best out of this and prevent something similar from happening again. So I agree with you. These 7 tips I think are very, very valuable and very worth repeating.
So go through the first one. The first one was be grateful for everything. Your health, your ability to work, your opportunity to do the profession that you dreamt of as when you were a kid, and the fact that you live in, most of us live in a first world country. So gratitude is an essential part of health, growth, and wealth. For me, gratitude is a daily practice, and I thought I would share that there is. I use my phone, and I create alarms, and one of the alarms that I have is at a time in the afternoon when I'm driving home after work, and it prompts me to consider what is a good moment that's occurred in the day, or what is a moment that actually I achieved something great, or that I connected well with someone during the day. So it makes me reflect upon, I suppose, a powerful but also uplifting and makes me feel grateful about what's occurred during the day. So do you have a practice yourself, Hubert, or what's your thoughts?
I love that. And I've certainly heard of it from multiple places, and that's not just the gratefulness thing, and actively practicing gratefulness is not just an opinion. There's a lot of science out there that shows the massive positive effects of it. I'm not gonna lie, I bought myself a little diary. I started doing it, but it's the forming of the habit hasn't worked for me yet. I keep starting, but it's something that I definitely I think I'm naturally quite good at that, at appreciating things when it happens. I've been much better at working on a mindfulness routine, and part of that for me is appreciating things as they happen in the moment. So I have some sort of practice, but not the same as you. When do you do yours? Do you do it in the morning, in the evenings? What's a time that works for you?
So I shared in previous podcasts that I have a performance planner. Okay, and I use Brendan Burchard's performance planner. It's beautiful, and it's powerful. There's numerous questions that he asks during the day, like at the start of the day, and also some questions that he gets you to reflect upon at the end of the day. And one of the questions that actually he asks you, you have to ask yourself, is what is a moment during the day that you're actually going to look forward to?
Hmm.
So it's like as if you're already grateful for something that hasn't even occurred, and it just sets you in this uplifting sort of moment
Hmm.
or uplifting mood, and makes you sort of look forward to something that's going to occur. And in his books, he even talks about if you can't think of anything, then actually think of a situation that potentially might be stressed about, and then turn that around some way into how it could build you up, or how the journey of going through that particular experience will actually, upon reflection, you'd be grateful for that. So, and then like I'm a busy person. I'm sure everyone's busy, but I really don't like leaving things to random chance. So having an alarm. I have an alarm that triggers off around about 6:15, and it's kind of like um, it, it it varies between sort of days and what it's called, but sometimes it's just called, what were you grateful for, and it's an alarm. It says grateful.
Yeah, great. That's
Mm.
fantastic. If you, I think I've shared this before. I read this somewhere. It might have been heard it on a podcast, probably. Um, but if you're struggling for something to be grateful for, I heard a monk talk about this, and he talks about how gratefulness arises when you receive a gift that you didn't deserve. So if somebody gives you a gift, you didn't buy it, you didn't work for it, you cannot help but feel grateful for that. It's a beautiful feeling of gratefulness. The second part of it is every single moment of your life is a gift that you didn't work for, you didn't deserve, you don't do anything for it. So if you can't find anything specific to be grateful for, it is literally just the fact that you are here this moment is a gift, and that's something to be grateful for.
No, I love that. Sometimes actually, in like some pretty nasty, heavy days, and you're just exhausted, it's when the alarm goes off, it's kind of like, what, there's the blue sky, or the grass is green. And I've said this before, sometimes it's even just the smallest thing that kind of snaps you out of, actually, I'm alive and I'm experiencing the world, and this really helps.
Yep. All right. So we move to number two.
Are you
Oliver's,
going to introduce number two? You do
I
number
can do
two.
number two. Oliver's second tip was give more than you receive. Be as generous to others as you can be. It feels good, makes you happier, healthier, and actually comes back to you in the long run, sometimes in strange ways that you did not expect. I remember Oliver actually mentioned that his current partner he met through some favor that he did to somebody, so
Yeah.
it does come back to you. um, but only give away items that you can afford to, whether they be in time, money, effort, or services. Don't let giving make you burn out. You are of no use to other people if you are burnt out. Um, but yes, giving is definitely a joy, and that's something as I move through my career, I'm finding more and more valuable personally. I think I was a lot more self-focused than selfish, which I think is fairly natural early in your career. You're trying to build a career, build a life, build your finances. For me, starting to give time without expecting something in return has it's been a joy. It has been one of my greatest joys over the last few years. What about you, G?
Hmm. Yeah, totally. And again, I've uh, created a bit of a structure around this, and there's a question that I ask myself in the morning. It's, who needs me at my A game today?
Mm-hmm.
And I can get caught in my own world and so forth. But then when I designate a person on that list, it could be Alex, it could be you Hubert, or it could be someone from work. But then I'm intentionally, like, it changes my mindset from one of just being inwardly focused to actually, how can I be of service to this particular person today?
Mm.
And so giving, it makes me give more. And I suppose the one question I would ask the listeners to consider would be, if there's a situation that you repeatedly find yourself, that you leave, that situation leaves you drained and exhausted, right? And let's say you can't change that situation, instead of falling victim to it, consider if there are ways that you can actually manage your state or learn potentially actually how to say no. Like, is there a way that you could say no in a way which doesn't leave you feel like as if you have lost power, or that aren't contributing, or aren't serving others. So I don't know if anyone really considers these repeated events that occur in our days which leave us in a disempowered state. What can we do if we can control ourselves in the way that we respond to them? What can we do to actually change that?
So give me an example. What sort of situation are we talking about here that would make you feel disempowered?
Yeah. So I'll bring it back to something really basic, and consults could repeated number of consults. Okay, you get slam, 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 get to 6 o'clock at night, and you're drained, right? Because you've given everything to your clients during the day because you want to do the best for them and do the best for your pet, for their pets and so forth. And that might mean that um, an interaction you have with a client which didn't go as well, but because you inherently want to do your best and do your best for your clients, you can't help but then internalize that and make their reaction, which may be negative, as a result of the actions that you took, or the actions that or what you said or what you did. But quite often, there are other things that are going on in someone's life, and grief is expressed in numerous different ways. Someone might be experiencing grief for what's going on with their pet, and they lash out and get in anger.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it may be that you just don't accept to take on that responsibility, right?
Yeah.
You leave some space for yourself. It's like, hey, I don't know what's going on in this person's life at the moment. It's a shit situation, and I'm gonna conserve myself here. I'm not gonna own that.
And then give again.
Mm,
That's often this is the really tricky part, but uh, sometimes you can still turn that situation around, or at least make it less hard on yourself to go, all right, there's something going on here. I don't think I deserve that. Um, is there something I can give to 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 still help? So take that little extra step, and not to the point of burnout. And again, not because you want to take the responsibility for what happens, or because it's your fault. But really, it's that act of giving if you can, or helping if you can. Even when you disagree with a client, you can still show them a little bit of kindness, or give them a little bit of extra attention or something. And sometimes that'll change the situation around, or at the very least, you walk away going, well, I have given everything I can. It's not me, it's them. Let's move on to the next thing.
yeah, and allowing yourself to just not accept the gift, like the gift of anger, right? That's a gift you don't have to receive. You
Yep.
don't exactly have to take it and open it and absorb it. You could change the way that you actually initially respond. And I've done this in several situations where they kind of respond in a way that's like, somewhat maybe irrational, but then your response could either be like, oh, get your defenses up.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you somehow train yourself to go, actually, wow, that's interesting. Like you change the first word that comes to your mind from hey, just wait, I got something to say here, to like, that's interesting. Then it stops the roll, stops the flow, stops you feeling like as if you have to defend your position, and then stops you from internalizing whatever they say into, I'm a bad vet now because I've upset this one person. So, but,
I'm that's so valuable, that skill of not letting what people say to you, and that's not always just clients. These can be your coworkers or your boss. Not letting it ruin you or ruin your day, or as you say, not accepting that gift of, this is what it's going to do to me. I'm currently reading a little book. I'm just looking for the title. I heard of this on the Tim Ferriss podcast, but it's a beautiful little book, and it's a short little book, and you should get it, Gerardo, if you haven't yet. It's called Awareness, by Anthony DeMello, and it talks a lot about that, about nobody can actually hurt you. Your initial response might be, I'm hurt, or you've offended me, or you've made me angry, but understanding that after that, then it's your decision whether you hold on to it, or whether you say, no, actually you can't. You can be a dick to me, but I don't have to take that. I'm just I'll just let it roll and can carry on. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's an easy thing to talk about. It's a very simple concept, but it's well worth a read of that little book. You can delve very deeply into this through that.
Oh, awesome, man. We'll pop that in the show notes as well.
I certainly will.
So we're up to number 3.
Yes.
So learn as much as possible about being a high performer, because this is what leading veterinarians are. Being a high performer encompasses everything from health, energy, resilience, relationships, intelligence, wealth. It will lead to a happier, healthier, longer lasting, more successful, more rewarding, higher paying career than if you just use the skills and knowledge you got from your upbringing and university. So learn about being a high performer.
Yeah,
What's your
that's right.
thoughts?
That's right on your ballpark, G. You have one of the most structured approaches to achieving that I've ever seen, and it's admirable. Um, uh, I certainly I agree. Again, the last few years of my life, I focused a lot more on that. I think initially at the start of your vet career, you're so focused on clinical. I want to be a better vet, and you think you are the finished product. You think when you're 18 years old, you are who you are. That's total rubbish. There's so much to learn. And there's so many resources. As you all know, I'm a massive podcast fan. Books, everything. Making time in your life to learn about yourself, learn where you're weak, learn how to get stronger. That just makes everything better for sure.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And like, and I, what you said there about, you go through uni, you go through high school, you just want to get into vet school, you get into vet school, and all of a sudden you just want to be the best clinician ever, and then you drown yourself in clinical knowledge, and then what I think is the wrong thing to do is to actually just set us to not understand the value of the non-clinical aspects of what we do. And that's just not just client communication, but that's us considering ourselves as like professionals. We're not just veterinarians. We are professionals. And if we were professionals, if we were professional athletes, there would be intentionality around our training, the use of our time, and goals that we're working towards, and structures in place to help us be high performing professionals. So in my mind, I see all of us veterinarians as high performing professionals, not just vets, you know. So we've been through the tough journey of vet school. It's forged us into the person that we are now, right? But there's still another journey to go, and that's where we fine tune and become the uber veterinary professional that we can be. So
Yeah, there's that negative stigma for a lot of people, and I certainly count myself as one of them, about the self-help industry. Um, and I'm sure there's a lot of I'm sure there is a lot of rubbish out there, but there's a lot of good stuff out there, and every single one of us have something to learn. Doesn't matter how old you are, there's always something more to learn. There's always something that you could polish, and I don't want to say get better at. Make better for yourself. There's always ways of improving.
I suppose one thing that I would suggest would be, and you said before about awareness and self-awareness is incredibly important in this aspect, because for many of us, it's just the awareness that actually, I'm not performing as good as I could be. What could I do? Where could I get feedback from? Who can I ask? And then being scared of getting feedback. And tell you what, one of the harshest critics of mine, but also one of my biggest supporters, is Alex. And like, she's there to actually make sure that I am the best version of me that I could be, right? And she's got my back. And when I don't act a particular way, if I'm not role modeling the way for the leadership team and our hospitals, or for our hospitals in general, she's always there. Not necessarily just nagging at me saying I'm doing the wrong thing, but she's consistently there, knowing that there is a version of me that I could be, that I want to be, and she's going to help me get there. So feedback, constructive criticism, whatever it is, absorb it, take it, and swallow it. And it hurts, but you need it.
I think that's a very important aspect of it. There is surrounding yourself with people who share that same goal for themselves and for you, because the opposite can be very, very true as well. If you hang out with people who are just unaware and satisfied with well, you can be satisfied with where you are. You don't have to be dissatisfied and always looking at the grass on the other side. But certainly, people who motivate you to be better, and who are open and honest enough to point it out when you're not being what you can be is a very, very important part of this journey. Otherwise, it can be a very lonely journey.
And you have to give them permission.
Yes. So Oliver's fourth rule for surviving veterinary science: do goal setting each year. Review your goals daily, weekly, and monthly. Many studies have shown that it makes a huge difference to long term outcomes. But make the goals in all aspects of your life, with your health, your relationships, your career, your finances, spirituality, hobbies, and fun things. And the important thing is to review those goals. If they're not working, try something else or another technique. Now, this I know you're all over this, Gerardo, Polly. I've listened to you talk about the Wheel of Life. I think we've talked about it before in this podcast, and it's somewhere in our show notes. Go for it.
The Wheel of Life is a powerful tool, and it's a tool which helps you just identify the areas in your life that aren't working so well for you. And you can either do a wheel of health, a wheel of career, or whatever it may be, when you draw a circle on a piece of paper and then you divide into 8 segments, and then you put your 8 most important areas in your life. Quite often there are things like health, family, relationships, career, money, travel, adventure, or spirituality or something. And then you score yourself from 0 to 10. And with 0 being the center of the circle and 10 being the outer aspects of the circle, you just color in each segment. And then what you have there in front of you is a diagram of your life and how you feel about different segments of it. If you put that wheel on a bicycle, and then you roll that wheel and you were riding down the hill in that bicycle, then, and most of us, and this is completely common, we would have a pretty bumpy ride. So then you just pick the segments that you feel like you want to work on, and then think of what would be a successful outcome for you in that. What would look, feel, and sound like for you in that particular section of the wheel? And then you break it backwards. How could I get there? Is it going to take a 2-year, 1 year time frame to get there? And then what would be my 5 major moves? What would be my 5 milestones in which we need to achieve along the way in order to get there? And I think I've shared this before, but on my bedroom, I have a wall, and like every bedroom has, but one of my walls is kind of like a battle board in a way, and it's about a 3 meter by maybe almost 2 meter whiteboard, and on it is my plan for the year. And I reflect upon that once a week and find out where I am. I tick things off and so forth, but it helps me keep me back on track. It's like when a plane flies from Brisbane to LA, it doesn't fly in a straight line. Every couple of minutes or whatever, it recorrects itself and then redirects itself. So it's just, whenever I look at that, I look at what I need to do next, where I want to be, and then I just keep on readjusting my path. And I feel that weekly reflection, daily reflection, weekly reflection, monthly reflection are all important aspects. And unless you go through the process, potentially, or you're not actually living the life you want, or you're actually at the whim of other people's desires and needs. So be a bit more intentional about what you want, really.
That's it. I love it. And that, what you just said there about the airplane, that is Oliver's fifth rule, is remembering that you have your goal, but not to be discouraged when that airplane veers off course a little bit, when there's a storm, when something happens, even when you have to stop for fuel on the way there, as long as you have that destination in mind.
I think a powerful phrase is reevaluate, realign, and re-engage. And then reevaluate, realign, re-engage. And just keep on going around. It's the same. Yeah, every week you do that. Reevaluate, realign, re-engage.
And then are your goals things that you tick off when you get to your goal, or do you reevaluate sometimes and go, actually, that's no longer my goal, I'm going to change my goal? Or once you set a goal, are you like a pit bull and you don't let go of that goal?
Oh, and that's something that's come with time and realizing that, and this is so I do performance coaching, and when I talk to the people that I performance coach,
Hmm.
one of the key things that they get stuck on is kind of like, I don't know if this is something that I want to do.
Yeah.
You know, I could be spending the next 4 months and then realize that I don't want to do this. I want to think more about what I want to do. Oh, okay. Well, then you're going to find yourself in another year's time thinking about the same thing again, right?
Yeah.
And what they forget is that clarity comes through action.
Yeah.
Clarity doesn't often come through thought. It's actually when you start to take action on your thoughts that you realize that either you like it or you don't like it. There's no qualms. There's nothing wrong with changing your goals. Once you realize you're taking action, it's not the thing you wanted to do. But you could still be there 3 years' time considering that same thought and not taking action.
I think that's a very important one. I think I'm prone to paralysis through analysis, through going, well, is that really what I want? What if I don't like, and this is the downside and that, and instead of just saying, oh, just give it a try. What's the worst thing that can happen?
So, number 6 was learning techniques of finding out what you really want in life. It may come down to going back right to the emotions and the feeling that makes you feel good. If you prefer to be safe and secure, then don't choose a career path that is dangerous, risky, and has no real job description. So once you know what you want, find good role models who you can learn from so that you're not having to reinvent the wheel. Learn from them. So what are your thoughts around role models?
Before we talk role models, I think that this point again goes back to our previous discussion about finding out what you really want in life. You can't set goals until you find out what you want in life, and it's sometimes it's easier said than done. I don't know. Have you got advice for that? How do you figure out what you want in life?
Yeah. Sometimes what I do is I break it down and I don't think as far ahead. Like I have goals for financial goals and house goals and
Hmm.
things like that. But you know what I really want in life, I don't really know unless I try what I want to do now and see what happens. But then I know that every couple of years I'm going to plateau. I'm going to, you know, I got out of vet school 2 years and I kind of reached, I was very comfortable in
Hmm.
general practice. And then, so I transitioned to emergency and that, you know, shook everything up. And then another 2 years, and then I was comfortable in emergency. So then what was the next thing? Okay, training, next thing, mentoring, next thing, management, next thing, business ownership, next thing, right? So it's not that I'll be happy when I reach this thing. It's just that I know that I am comfortable knowing that my path will change depending on how I feel and how my skills and how my knowledge grows. So my future is for me pretty exciting because I just know that I can take it wherever I
Mm.
want to go.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think it brings us back again to awareness, to self awareness and awareness. When Oliver talks about to figure out what you want in life, go back to the emotions and the feelings that make you feel good when you do those things. Um, Sometimes there's a lack of awareness there to go, well, I don't actually know what I like.
I understand what you're saying. It's you know, what is it that you want to experience? You know, what is it that you want to feel? It may not be a particular goal, but if you got there and you achieved that goal, but at the same time you felt
Hmm.
something, you know. So what does a successful outcome look like for you in 3 years? I want to be a business owner. Okay, fine, that could be something, but you're going to be unhappy business owner or you want to be a happy
Yeah,
business owner? It's like, what do you want to
yeah,
feel? You know, what does it mean for you? What kind of impact do you want to have on your team, on your community, on the pets and the owners that you
mm,
see?
yeah.
You know, consider what it means for you and the feeling that you want to actually have when you achieve
Okay,
that.
great. That's good. Thanks for clarifying that. Now, in terms of role models, mentors, yes, 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 yes. I didn't have enough of them. Still, always looking for more. But yes, I'm learning that that's extremely valuable. Have you got mentors who you actively learning from, Gerardo?
Yeah, and a couple points there is if you don't have the mentoring, don't let yourself be the victim of I don't have the mentoring or I don't have access to the
Hmm.
mentoring. There is like you got the AVA mentoring program, which you remote
Hmm.
mentoring, right? You can change where you're at, change the environment. if it doesn't align with you, change your environment to one which is more highly supported. And you have a mentor, you can ask other people who their mentors are, and ask those mentors if they would be your mentor. And also, you've got to consider that sometimes you have to pay for
Mm-hmm.
mentoring. And like, I'm a performance coach, so people pay me for mentoring, but I also have a coach. And at one stage, I had two coaches,
Mm-hmm.
right? And one was helping me with regards to my mindset and clarity around rolling out a particular project and plan. The other one was actually coaching me on life and in life in general. So there was incredible value that I got from actually investing in coaching and investing in my own professional development. So the last thing I would
Mm-hmm.
say, Hubert, maybe sounds like as if I'm
No.
rambling a little bit, but you got to look at your circle. You got to look at the people that you surround
Yep.
yourself with, the people in your environment, and whether or not those people support you, and whether or not they are the right people to help you get to where
Mm-hmm.
you want. So they talk about your influential five. They talk about your inner circle, leveling up your squad. Go find people who have done or do earn the amount that you want. Are the kind of people that you want to be, and spend time with them, because quite often it's the mindset and it's the thoughts that actually stop us from getting where
Yep.
we want, as opposed to the
Yep.
actual
Yep.
ability.
Yeah, there's a lovely saying that says, you are the average of the five people that you most surround yourself with.
Mm. It's and um, it, in the last kind of 3 years, I've actively sought, paid for, as well as asked people to be particular mentors in different areas of my life, and it's propelled me forward and helped me so much.
Excellent. Yeah, same. I haven't paid for mentors yet, but it's because I'm a cheapskate.
I wasn't going to say that, mate. You said you felt.
But I will. I have to. All right, and then our number 7 rule, and this one I love. And again, this is something I'm learning more and more. Learn to embrace failure, as you probably haven't experienced too much of it in your young life. Live by the sayings like success is due to good judgment, good judgment is due to experience, and experience is due to bad judgment. I feel very strongly. I think particularly in our profession, you don't get into vet school and you don't get out of vet school without a high degree of success. So I don't think too many of us are very comfortable with failing. So when we start failing in real life, it comes as a bit of a shock and it floors some of us. Um, to me, starting to learn that seeking out situations where there's a fair chance that you're going to fail is the fastest way to improvement, whether that is clinically, personally, relationship wise. Get comfortable with failure. If you fail, it's not the end of the world. In fact, you have to fail to move forward.
Totally, totally true. And as a mentor, let's say that you're a senior clinician in a hospital, or you have a new graduate veterinarian who's jumping on board and you're mentoring them, then you have to share your
Mm-hmm.
failures. And it was one of the most powerful things that my mentors and the senior clinicians above me did for me, and that was share their failures, so that I learned from
Mm-hmm.
them as well, but also it made them feel more
Yep.
real. As a mentor, it made your mentor feel more real, and that they actually have something of value. And a mentor who thinks they're invincible and vulnerable, has never failed at anything, is not the right
Well, is
mentor.
it because he's a liar for a start? Yeah,
No
yeah,
self-awareness.
exactly. No, you're right, and it also just models to you that the person that I respect is okay with failing, so I should be okay with failing. I think it's
Mm,
essential. I'm thinking of another lovely quote I like about failure. Failure is acceptable, but failing to learn from your failures is unacceptable. That is just such a good
mm,
school. It's that failure that hurts the most. You're going to remember that lesson forever. So no, that's I love rule number 7.
and somewhat, there's two things that I want to share. And one, as a mentor, sometimes actually you have to let your mentee fail, provided that they are in a safe environment and it's not going to kill anything. then if they decide to go down a diagnostic pathway that probably isn't going to get to the answer, they're not going to know unless they've done that.
Mm-hmm.
So you let them fail in safe environments, and then they learn from the experience. But also, one of my coaches told me and ingrained this in my head, which was whenever a situation arose that didn't go the way that I wanted it to be, or an adverse outcome occurred, then the three questions you ask is, what did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about others? And what can you do next time? And it was really kind of pulling out the learnings out of the failure and actually not then allowing it to globalize into, oh, I did such a shit job, I'm a shit vet.
Mm.
Like that roller coaster or slippery slope, let's say, down to that globalization of one particular incident that then all of a sudden makes you, think that everything that you've ever done in your career is not worthwhile. So
Yep.
I found that was really helpful.
No, and it goes beyond. I am learning, or I have learned this lesson in clinical practice, but then it goes beyond it. I'm finding it in my personal life, or in any other adventures, or any other ventures I do. When recently came back from a holiday, and it sounds stupid, but situations where, let's say, we planned something and it didn't go according to plan. It wasn't what we imagined. We stayed in a hotel or went somewhere that didn't work out as I planned it. And it sounds ridiculous, but I used to beat myself up over that and go, oh man, I've got limited money, I've got limited time, and I've wasted a day of the holiday. And then stopping and going, well, it's a failure in how in what my expectations were. But what have we learned here? What have I seen? What I didn't expect? If nothing else, well, I've learned that I'm never going to come back here again. but there's value in it, in every single failure, every single thing that you do. You sit back and go, well, what's the lesson? Um, and and then just move on from that.
I think it also helps to sort of be in a mindset of what can you learn regardless of whether or not it's a failure or not.
Yeah.
So when we film and produce video, when we filmed the Unleashed Online conference, one of the first things we did, we celebrated, had beer and great because we streamed live for 20 hours, but we got a whiteboard out and it's like, okay, what did we learn? What could we do better next time? What could we do to, what didn't work so well? How can we improve that? And just like it's an evaluation of not just the failures, but also the achievements as well,
Mm-hmm.
because there is also room and learning in that too. So
Yeah, yep. That's a very tricky thing. You can apply that to clinical practice. So the case goes well, the outcome is good. Um, then you pat yourself on the back and go, "Great, I'm fantastic. I can do this." Having that awareness to say, "Good, that worked out. What could I've done better anyway to make it even better next time?" I think just speaking of clinical practice, that's a very tricky lesson, but I think quite an important thing when you do case studies or case rounds is to not just look at the cases that went wrong and learn from that, because sometimes a case goes wrong and you've done everything perfectly, but they still go wrong. So evaluate your thinking, saying not did the case go well or did it go wrong, to go how was the thinking and how are the processes in this situation, were they good enough, could we have done it better?
it also takes you to the next level when you start to evaluate your wins, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your achievements, because then it helps you integrate those wins,
Yeah, okay.
right? We often think, I'll be confident once I can do this particular procedure or this GDV surgery or something like that. But then what happens is you have to pat yourself on the back and reflect upon the achievements you've done, the small steps, right? It's like trying to jump from the ground level to level one and then somehow expect to be confident enough to do that. But it takes each single step. Each single step is an achievement, and each single step is an integration of a win that you've just done.
Mm-hmm.
So you build the confidence up through reflecting upon your accomplishments and learning what you've learned. Therefore, when you think about what you've learned, then you own that lesson, you've owned that achievement, and you integrate that win, another boost of confidence. So
That's great. I like that. Yeah, okay. Right. And that's us. That's the 7
I hope you
rules.
guys enjoyed that.
Please give us
7 rules.
Okay, here you go.
This is Hubert. I always wanted feedback. Please give us feedback if you felt that was helpful for you. And if you did find that helpful, then we'll start to pick out some gems out of these amazing podcasts and share our thoughts.
Alrighty, we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining. Good night.
Thank you.